We're on live stream, so welcome councillors. Acknowledge Alan, who's on live stream, and also those that are on live stream in general, to the Finance and Projects Committee meeting for today, 16th of April. We do have a special guest. Would like to welcome Tony Scott from the Kimbra Council in Victoria. He's come along. He's also a ratepayer, so he's come along to see how things work in this part of the world, heard how great it is, so he's come to learn from the best.
And a modest.
You don't sing your own praises, no one else will. Okay, yeah, I haven't got any apologies in front of me. Are there any apologies from the committee? No? Okay. No, okay. No apologies to accept. Declarations of interest, just would ask that committee members please ensure that that's updated, and if there's any on the agenda that is of conflict, please let the right people know about that. We don't have any public forum, so we can move straight into the minutes of the Finance and Projects Committee meeting held on the 19th of March.
I was an apology, I can't remember.
And so was I.
So Vanessa will move, thanks Tom, and seconded Barry. Is there any discussion on those minutes? I just had one question, Patricia, just on page 2 of 7 of the report, or 5 of board books, the readjustment forecast. I'm not sure if it's a wording of that, but were we going to receive an updated position? A query was raised around readjustment of the forecast at the end of the quarter and note of the forecast.
That's currently being worked on at present, and the Q3 forecast comes with the performance report. So next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay. No other queries from myself or anyone else, so all those in favour of receiving those minutes?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, next item. The finance update. So Patricia's going to present this to us.
I'll take the paper as read. This is the key points to note: that we're still tracking as we expected to be on our net debt. We are, as everyone will have seen in the media, interest rates are still staying quite high, and they're staying there. They're sort of plateaued. They haven't come down, is what we were thinking, which is causing some concern. And the other piece that has the sensitive expenditure since the last report through to the 21st of March. So that covers all expenditure processed in that period.
Thank you. Any questions?
Happy to move, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a couple. Just on page 1 of 6 of the report, or page 12 of board books. Of the 63 million we have in cash investments, how much of that is income received in advance?
A portion will be, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how much it will be, because it'll be made up of some people will have paid rates in advance.
Right. Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest chunk of income received in advance. Some of the other aspects that'll be putting it up is any subsidies we've received in advance.
Yeah,
as well.
that's right. Yeah. So what is it normally? Is it 10% of that number, or is it less than that? Or
Depends on the. It should be dropping down at the moment, because we've only got one rate instalment left.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I'll add it into the quarterly report.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thanks. And then just in terms of those fixed rates on page 13 of board books, or 3 of the report, what could you add the tenure in? Oh, the maturity date's April 24, so they've actually rolled off fixed, have they?
So they
are due to.
They're due to. We're due to refinance So we have got a lot of still some quite low fixed still to sit with us for another couple of years.
So would they roll off onto higher rates or about the
Yes.
same rates they would? Depending on the term, obviously. But
Depending on the term, those ones coming off in April have been quite short term. That's why they're at 5.8.
yeah,
So they'll roll off probably more like a 6. We might be lucky just on the day we go to do it.
and the policy we're adapting at the moment around our hedging is to keep it short.
We are looking to sort of take it out if we can see a hole of a window. We will. We're looking at potentially going floating though, and putting hedges to fix them. Just because we think the floating at the market may well move, so we may switch from a more fixed to more floating with hedges.
Yeah.
To fix them.
Yeah.
Just to give that certainty. So for councillors, the use of fixed interest rate gives us certainty for our budgeting. And in the markets that we have been in the past 4 or 5 years, or probably even longer, fixed has been at such a low rate.
Yeah,
it's been beneficial.
Yeah, we benefit from that now, aren't we? So what's our policy, if remind me, around the percentage of fixed versus floating? Do we?
It depends on the tenure. So we should be... we don't go fixed floating. If we've gone floating and we fix it with hedges, we have to keep so much within unhedged.
Yeah.
So I think up to 80% in that first 2 years needs to be fixed or fixed with hedges.
Yeah, so if our view was that rates are likely to start decreasing in the next 12 months, our hedging policy enables us to position ourselves to benefit from that.
Yeah. And as the committee will recall, currently we're just sitting outside the boundaries of that hedging policy. Yeah. Because we don't have enough hedged or fixed in that middle term because we've been borrowing so short.
Yeah. Okay. Tom? Oh, sorry, Nobby.
Yeah, right, Tom.
Whichever.
Yeah, you go, Tom. Yeah, and sorry, Darren, I missed. Yeah, Tom.
Just on the loan advances issued in Invercargill Central, can you remind me what the interest rate is on that?
It is the 90-day bank bill rate plus a margin. So it's an interest rate much higher than what we're borrowing. But that we set that rate on a 90-day bank bill plus.
I just wondered why we never quoted an interest rate.
Plus a 2.5% margin.
Okay. I've got one other quote if you don't mind, but it takes me into the sensitive expenditure. Do you want to deal with other stuff first?
I will take Darren and sorry, Nobby and then Darren. So Nobby's yours relating to this?
No, it's a peripheral issue. So
okay, not Darren.
You're just around the Clean Air Scheme with Environment Southland, which is still sitting at $200,000. Are we still offering finance under that?
We're not offering any new loans at the moment.
So that's just servicing the.
We're just servicing, and actually, I think we still hold that 200. We're down to a handful of loans remaining outstanding.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So we'll come back to Tom with sensitive expenditure and then go to you, Nobby.
Okay, very small matter, but just for, I guess, historical accuracy, if you look at the sensitive expenditure table, and it has the first item is me, airfares, Zone 5 and 6 meeting. I never actually went to that meeting, and Nobby took over the that ticket. I think it was the same ticket that Nobby, so that should just be corrected.
Yeah, thank you.
Just in case I get charged with murder in Christchurch or something like that, I can prove I'm not there.
Nice segue into your question, Nobby.
yes, mine's just a peripheral issue. We've had some feedback in the last week or so from staff saying insurance and inflation and interest rates are all up more than we thought, and this might push the margins of what we're forecasting rate increase, rate strike purposes. When are we going to hold a meeting to discuss that and what the options are for us if we have any, and does that open up another round of consultation if we do?
Probably a Michael question, isn't it?
I can answer.
Oh yeah, okay.
Michael, so we are proposing to hold a workshop which will be live streamed on the 30th of April, which we will go through the implications of the reforecast, and as a result of the 3 I's, as I'm now calling them: inflation, insurance, and interest rates. I always forget. We always forget one of them. We'll go through that, and that will also include options that councillors will be able to go through, and whether that to adjust any increase. At this stage, we don't believe it will result in additional consultation. A lot of these are centred around the assumptions that we made when we first put the long-term plan together and put it out to consultation.
So what would, just another question, Chair, so what would happen if as part of that workshop we threw up some strategies that we wanted to look at that might impact on service delivery? Would that require us to go back out? I'm not suggesting we go back out, but I just want to make sure that we're not sort of listening to what the public said in its consultation, and then behind the scenes we're doing something a little bit different.
Michael?
Thank you. Through yourself, Chair. Look, it would depend on what those proposals are coming back through. If it has a significant impact in relation to service, yes, it would. We would potentially have to go back out and through a consultation process.
Yep.
Okay, and just for my thinking around timing, so then deliberations on LTP post
The 14th of May, an extraordinary council meeting is proposed for the 14th of May, which case from then on we have 2 weeks to turn it around for audit. Audit come in to audit the final long-term plan documents and all the supporting information so that we can adopt on the 30th of June.
So we would have the 3 eyes workshop on the 30th, and then the LTP deliberations on the middle of May, and then
14th, I think it is.
And then we'd have some time before we have to make the final decision on the 30th of June.
Yes.
Around the cost implications. Yeah.
There's not a lot of time.
No,
because of
but there is some
of the audit implications.
Okay.
But we do have to get it right.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. Okay. Righto. Thank you. I've got a mover in a second for that.
Yeah, Leslie's moving.
Leslie moved. Can I have a seconder, please? Thanks, Nobby. Any final questions? Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, tab 6, strategic capital projects. Lee.
Afternoon all.
Welcome.
Right, since we've got a little bit of time on our hands, I thought maybe we'd take a bit of time just to give you a bit of an update through the dashboard. So, Branxholme Water Main, actually trucking along reasonably well, even though we've had quite a bit of a wet summer. We've also got a team down livening the first stage, so that's the stage from Pomona Road through down into Donovan Park. That part is being tested at the moment, and those who are travelling up the north would see the MacGyver Road was closed for a little while there as we opened that connection point up. We connected the north section to a recent section that we've laid with our current contractor. So we're hoping, I think it's probably another 6-7 weeks of work, and we will have livened that, and that will be part of the potable water system. So just around about the end of last year, we started having quite a few failures on that part of the line. It is one of our more prone areas for failure, and so it's great that we're now, within a couple of months of actually starting to use Branxholme pipeline for our drinking water source, and the resilience is starting to be built into the system. So. Yeah. That's really, really good. The contractor's been able to send more resources down to us, as well as utilising a few more local contractors there to do that testing and livening work for us. So just taking a huge risk away from the water system. So that's been really good. We've also had a bit of a change with an alignment through a Parks and Reserve area, approved by the Parks team, which has been great. Been working with them. There's a little saving to come from that. Which is great. So that's, that overall, that project's going real well.
Sorry, Lee, do you want to take questions on each project?
Yeah, I could do. That's maybe a good idea.
I think that's probably best. Are there any questions relating to that?
Branxholme?
I've just got a comment probably. I know that's been a big project and it's come down some pretty important arterial routes, and I think generally speaking, it's been managed really well.
Yeah.
It seems to have gone relatively smoothly. We've come through D Street, turned into Herbert Street, and I think the contractors have managed comms and generally it's gone well. So I think that's a good shout out to them.
Yeah, I think we took a lot of lessons I learned from City Streets. I think we spent a lot of time and effort on comms, and when we did City Streets, I think we learned a lot from that. The comms team have been awesome in just keeping the public up to date, keeping the updates fresh. The site teams have been good at door knocking and keeping the members of the public. And end of the day, hats off to the public as well. They know it's coming. They understand why it's coming, and they've been really patient too. So
true.
Yeah,
no, it's good. Thank you.
Rugby Park. So we've now taken possession of the main stand for the 2024 package of works, and I think scaffolding and bits and pieces are starting to be erected at the moment, and steel's due on site. Not too far away from bringing steel into the building. So the 2024 work is mainly again strengthening works for the main stand, and we've also got a keen eye on the 2025 package as well. I suppose a bit of a long range notice is that for the 2025 works, we are looking to close the stadium for an extended period of time, and that's because we need to address the roof and bits and pieces in that package. But again, this is one of those projects where a lot of planning has gone into this, and a lot of poking holes and really investigating and planning before we do the doing. Again, working with Rugby Southland, they've been great to work with, very accommodating, and the project team and the stakeholders are working really closely together there. So, yep, challenging project, but yep, going pretty good.
Okay, thank you. Leslie, did you have a question relating to that?
Yeah, I did. It's the roof implications.
Yeah.
On the next page, Lee, you've said it's looking like closure for an entire year, and you were discussing with stakeholders. So,
yeah.
When you say stakeholders, how widely are we going? Because it wouldn't just be Rugby Southland. There's some regular other.
Yeah, I think at the moment, I suppose we've just been focusing a little bit on them because we've been trying to work inside the rugby window. So it was just when we say, I suppose we've been talking to stakeholders, we've been trying to understand what the 2025 rugby season window would look like and if there was any wiggle room in that. So at the moment, it has been predominantly rugby just because we are trying to work around that rugby window. Once we've locked that program in, which we're not far away from, then I think we'll be able to speak to a wider range of stakeholders with a bit more certainty. But yes, when we're talking about stakeholders at the moment, Leslie has most predominantly been rugby, just because we're trying to work within the NPC season and other fixtures.
Right. So I just wanted to know, because I immediately thought of Sport Southland and
yes,
a couple of the others.
Yeah, we'll cast our net a lot wider in the near future.
Good. Thank you for that.
On that, in terms of the phasing of that being this year 24 and next year 25, and looking at that budget, what's the rough spend within each year? Are you able to
very, very different, because the packages of work are really, really quite different. So the media tower was a relatively small spend compared to this year. This year's well in excess of $1 million. Last year was $500,000-ish. Yeah.
And next year, the residual.
Yeah, next year will be a big one. We've got some numbers at the moment. We're just sort of working them numbers back through.
Yeah.
They're still within budget, which is good.
Yeah.
But they are pushing. We're getting to the end of the budget, and we've still got a demolition to do in 26. So yeah, we're just scrutinising 25's numbers a little bit more. But yeah, last year $500,000. This year just over $1 million. 25 will be it's a big piece of work now.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Barry.
Yeah, well done, Lee. You've done bloody well with all these projects. As far as the roof goes on, are they going to alter the profile of it, or?
Yeah, so at the moment, but the problem problem that's there, it's a historical problem, is that some of the strengthening members actually pierce the roof, and they've been trying to, it's a legacy problem. We're trying to waterproof them. We need to put more of those members up for the earthquake strengthening. So we got to a point where it was a bad patch over a bad patch over a bad patch. So we've taken a sort of the bull by the horns, and we're going to take the roof sections down. We're going to reprofile the roof sections and then put them back up. So it's a one-stop shop. We're going to avoid this waterproofing issue that's been plaguing the building, to be fair.
Okay, thank you. CAB.
Yeah, so CAB, it's it's an ongoing challenge. We've started looking at decant solutions as well as possible location options. That second solution came to us yesterday, so I'm just about to prepare a paper for ELT and take the ELT team through what a possible decant can look like. Other than that, we're continuing to do sort of patch-up work. I know some work has been done on the roof of the building, and ongoing works just to keep the lights on and keep the building operating. But it's, it's not an easy project, and we're just working through solutions, options, and just trying to bring the best information we can bring to council at the right time.
So, in terms of when that information would come back to various committees or councils, what
yeah, so it's probably on me. I'm just been busy with other things, but I'd like to get in front of ELT this month, right, and then probably back to you at the next F&P
in May. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
If possible, maybe a workshop sooner than that. But
yes. Yeah. Tom?
I know we don't want to develop it today, but I'm intrigued by this word decanting. You mean moving everybody out?
Yeah. So obviously,
is it really that bad that we would consider moving everybody out of this building?
So what we're looking at, Tom, is if we had to decanting on our own terms, and what the risk would be if we had to decant not on our own terms. So a controlled decant would probably be the better one, and a lot more cost effective than an uncontrolled event. We've looked at an uncontrolled event, and it's almost like COVID, where staff are working from home, we can't get back to the building, and we can't operate the services that we want to operate and the community rely on. So we just sort of looked at that, and we've just taken a bit of time to go, if we had to decant, where could we decant to? We did this in 2021 when we looked at the project initially, and there was nowhere for us to go. There's a few more options out there in Invercargill now, so we're just looking at those options. Not spending a huge amount of time on it, but just making sure that if we could go, where would we go, and being prepared just in case something.
Through you, Chair. I mean, I would appreciate if there was such a proposal. To evacuate this building, to me is a very, very big deal, and as a councillor, I would like to go and look at those things that are so bad that would cause us to evacuate this building.
Yeah.
Because I don't see them.
So, and it's probably either a Lee or a Michael question. With the paper or workshop that you're planning, is there going to be quite a bit of work and information to councillors around some of those things? What are the issues and what is the risk, and so councillors can sort of get a feel.
We've had the building condition survey, a number of times. It's all in red for now, and we understand that. Again, for us, it's about that uncontrolled state or the controlled state. We know the building is in need of a lot of work. For that work to happen, we believe we couldn't do it while we're in here. So we need to move out. We knew that in 2021. Back in 2021, we didn't have the options that we possibly do now. So that's the reason. It's not evacuating a building per se, but we did have to evacuate the building last Monday.
Yeah, Michael.
Through self-chair, look, I might take that suggestion on board in relation, Deputy Mayor, and work with Lee about potentially doing a tour with the councillors in relation to those sites, because it is it's ideal if you see it firsthand, and there are a number of spots that may actually highlight the concerns and issues from an operations team that we actually have in relation to the site. So I'll take that on board. I'll work with Lee and see if there is the opportunity to do that, even if it's part of the initiation of the workshop.
Is the decanting cost, if I can put it like that, if it's been considered for a couple of years, is it already in the budget?
No. Because
it's not in the long-term plan.
Well, I suppose we have a project cost, Thomas. We've never gone to the pipe because we couldn't find somewhere to go to. We never had to decant the entire ICC is going to cost this much because we couldn't find anywhere to go.
But as part of that process, given you were considering that when you put this together a couple of years ago, the 16 million would include a relocation.
There was a relocation sum of money, but it wasn't enough.
Right. Okay. Well,
sorry. I'll just add a little piece to that, and that's just around, at the moment we have that placeholder sum from the previous long-term plan to do something around our civic accommodation. We have talked through the fact that there may be different options that have different costs that may come within that 16 or may come outside of that 16, and we didn't have that information ahead of the long-term plan. So what we did was essentially leave that $16 million there for the investigation works, and potentially the ability for us to have to come up with an option that, if council desires, fits within that budget, and that would include the decant costs associated with it, and most likely doing some form of remediation to this building. So there is, I think, Lee, unless you disagree with me, an option that falls within the existing LTP budget. It just may not be the one that council decides is the best option.
Does that answer your question, Tom?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, look, we're going to workshop, but it'll be interesting to look at the lease cost of a new facility and whether that would make it worth ever coming back here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
And I think that's absolutely one of the things that we have to explore as part of what is the right option for the accommodation for ICC moving forward. Absolutely agree.
Yeah. So Nobby, then Leslie?
Yeah, just to reinforce what Tom's saying, I guess, is that it seems to us that we potentially are pouring more money into this building where our long-term vision may not be to stay here. And that's just throwing money away in my view. And I know there's standards we've got to keep coming up to, but you know, we've sat around here and looked at 4 or 5 options around the city, haven't really considered one of the obvious ones, which might be a fit out and partial strengthening of the H&J site, for argument's sake. And I've heard Tom talk before about what Ports of Otago are doing in Dunedin. So I think we're spending money before we actually have our view on where we should be. And I think that's an urgent matter, because we could spend millions and millions of dollars on this building only to find out that our plan is for 3 or 4 years from now to not be here.
Yeah.
And it's a significant amount of money, $16 million.
Yeah, it is.
I can assure you that although the $16 million is sitting there, what was agreed was a budget of up to $1 million to essentially keep the lights on, and the remainder of that $16 million sitting at the back end in case, essentially as an emergency fund.
I understand that.
But we're certainly not making any effort to spend that money.
No, thank you for that reassurance. Leslie?
Thanks, Chair. Lee, I was just interested, since we've expanded a bit on the decanting, and giving us the decanting options, is it decanting the entire building or is it decanting floor by floor, and is it worth giving us the option of both?
We've considered the floor by floor option a number of times, and just due to the way the heating works, the cooling works, it's not really an option for us because the systems are so out of date. They need overhauled completely. So once the heating goes off, it'll go off on all floors. So we did look at that very early days, and we did explore that in great detail, trying to work from the top down, from the bottom up, 2 floors at a time, creating a floor buffer for noise and that. But due to the state of the systems, for example, the heating is the classic example, it needs completely removed in its entirety and replaced. So therefore the heating would be gone in the entire building. So we did look at it, Leslie, but it just wasn't feasible. So the decant options that we are looking at, or the decant solution that we will bring forward, is a full decant, and that is actually the most efficient way to do the building if we were going to do this building.
Thanks for that.
Okay. Any more questions on that? Next one. 1225.
You want to start? Museum. So we've left museum in amber for the short term, just while we're working through the design and construct piece with Naylor Love. They've been working incredibly hard. They delivered their package to us at Easter, which was their first review of the developed concept and the buildability of the developed concepts. That was the first thing that we asked them to look at, was how much of the concept could we hold, how much of the concept was really going to be challenging. The second part of that was delivered, second stage of it was delivered to us on Friday, which started looking at contractual mechanisms, timelines. They started to show us elements that they felt might need to change. They started giving us some visuals about how they would go about it, but retaining obviously the items that were important to us. Probably the fundamental thing that's probably come about is there's been quite a bit of structure change in the physical building, and we've actually gained some good positive bits in the West building. So the experienced team and Gibson International have been pretty progressive and pretty happy about the things that have changed in there. Eloise has been really happy. She's gained a couple of 100 square meters of experience space, which is awesome, because we did lose a little bit of that in our first concept design. So they're doing really well. It is taking us a little bit longer to get to where we want to get to. We're looking at July, probably getting to a point where we understand and we're happy with price, but we've got a bit of work to do between now and July to start to, bring that information to the design control group so they can start to see what things have changed, give some feedback, and sort of get that design to a point where we're all happy with what we're buying and what we're paying for it. So that team's been working incredibly hard, and hats off to them, but we've left it in amber for now because we're not quite where we want to be.
Okay. Any questions? Rhea?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Lee, with the this phase of Project 1225, and you've mentioned that we could face some small challenges with the design concept. Are you expecting anything left wing come out and really shock us?
No, look, again, they've shown us some early pictures on Friday of some of the things that they're suggesting. Yeah, the walkers are still there, the West building's still there. The steps look a bit different, but there's still some steps. The education space is where the education space is, the cafe is where the cafe is, the foyer is still glazed. And
is there still the internal lift?
Still the internal lift, yes. So, look, they've managed to keep, for us, we gave them a list of what we call KPIs, the things that were really important to us. They've managed to keep, really a vast majority of them, but just made it constructible. And I think that's where we got stuck.
Okay. So if I may, supplementary to that, in this process, we also looked at, I'm terrible with directions, sorry, and having the ability to increase our building towards the
West.
Yes.
Yes.
So is that still being the potential increase? Should we need it?
Yeah,
or
look,
has that kind of subsequently shrunk?
No. So that's not changed actually. So we still, when the plant room's moved out to the west, the loading dock is back at the west where it was anyway. So nothing's really changed in that sort of space. I suppose the challenges of carrying on going west is the Jessie Calder Gardens and the impact to the park. But we're right up to our boundaries. Okay. But should the change should you be allowed to build in that space, or that space be redesignated to be built in, then we could expand that way.
Okay.
Barry?
Yeah, Bob Simpson brought up, being an architect, about the ceiling of penetrations going through the concrete. Has that been really researched out?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good, pretty standard practice today. We have passive fire and active fire protections, and passive fire is looking at those protections.
More of water.
Look, it's good practice nowadays, Barry. We don't suffer leaky buildings like we used to back in the day. I think for a museum, we're looking at acoustics, we're looking at fire, we're looking at water. Yeah, it's definitely close eye on that sort of stuff.
Kieran?
I'll just add that I think Lee wouldn't have heard Bob's submission through the hearings process. I think, Lee, some of the stuff that Bob was talking about was some of those constructability challenges that the team have already flagged, and is why there are some changes to the building, because the team had some similar concerns to those flagged.
Yeah, just probably a comment from me. Lee, look, I know you've and the team have done a heck of a lot of work over the last couple of months in getting as close to back on track as you can, and
Yep.
you're probably still not where you want to be, but
Not yet.
I think it's a credit to the team and yourself that we are where we are. So thank you.
Yeah, no,
on behalf of that.
I'd like to turn it green soon if I can.
Yeah, that'd be good. Tuatara?
Tuatara. Yep. No, it's on green. We're looking to hand the building over to Parks this month. Having had a quick walk around there last week, it's starting to shape up really cool.
Yeah,
It's great to see the burrows starting to be formed. Yes, it's looking hell of a like the architect intended it to now, which is great. They're starting shaping up the paths and the little bridges over the sort of waterway. And we had some heavy rain I think at the end of last week, and that waterway did turn into a little waterway. So you're starting to really get that sort of island concept, and I mean it's looking like a really cool facility.
Yeah, it is.
Yep, on budget for us as well. Calder Stewart are on time for us too, so looking forward to handing it over to the Parks, and then they can do all the prettying and preparing to move the Tuatara.
Yeah, good. Barry, then Tom.
Yeah, big congratulations on this one. I went past it yesterday. I rode past. Looks really impressive.
Yeah, thanks Barry. I'll pass it on to the team.
Tom?
Yeah, just something that I was reading about thefts from zoos and so forth, of rare and, expensive animals. Have we gave enough thought to security for that? I mean, are you comfortable with that? I mean, I haven't actually seen it, so I'm not basing it in anything. It's just an open question.
Yeah, so the security, I suppose, again, don't want to give away too many trade secrets, but the security is kind of a three-layered sort of approach. We've got outer fencing. We've created an island, so it makes it very difficult for that whole ram raid thing to happen, which is becoming more popular and popular in the country, unfortunately. Then there's security cameras. Then there's locks and fences and all those sorts of things. So there's three security lenses, I suppose, Tom, if you want to call them that, and that was designed into it from day one.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe a question for Rex. When would we expect to see the Tuataras back in the facility? I'm asking on behalf of all the kids in town.
June.
In June this year. Wow. That's real. Yeah, awesome. That's cool, isn't it? And you're planning a bit of a sort of a kids celebration to welcome them back? Yeah, awesome. That's great. Cool. That's good news. Bluff program.
Yep. So for those who have been down there, this one's in amber more so because of the trouble we had probably in the end of last year with some tricky rock and stuff in the drilling of the piles. So that has cost us a little bit more than we wanted to cost, and you can see on the program that we're showing showing quite a bit of an overspend there. Since that, we started to have a few small wins, which has been great, and those numbers are starting to come down. I think I'm showing a $500,000 overspend, and that's probably closer to $300,000 now. Even over the last couple of 3 weeks, we've had some small wins on the project. A tough project. The contractor really did suffer a wee bit with the Bluff Rock. What we did there, we think we went 16 days over our plan, or they went 16 days over their plan, and they cut out all their margin and profit for those 16 days. So we just paid them true cost on that. The pontoons are actually in for paint, and I think they're due on the water, I think, next month. And South Roads are back, I think, in the next week or so to start on the East Jetty. I get them mixed up quite sometimes, but I think it's the East Jetty they start back on and start the demolition of that, and the piles will start to go in for that. The PU pontoon's already in, for those who possibly been down there for sort of late summer. So the PU section, which is the floating section, is already in and was being used over late summer there by the community. And it's great seeing the community already using that. And again, pretty challenging project, pretty challenging budget, but it's on track for finishing this year as planned.
Cool. That's good. I know the Bluff community's looking forward. Who did the geos on the site? Was it the contractor?
No, so the geos were done in advance by our original consultant group. I think it was Jacobs. Yeah, which were fairly extensive, to be honest with you. Just you get the look of the grain. We had 4 massive caissons to put in. 2 of them went in okay, and 2 of them were not so easy, not so okay. Yeah. Southport's having some trouble over on their side doing their work as well. Actually, both contractors were working together to try and find a solution, trying different drill bits and all sorts of different drills and different approaches to getting these holes drilled. I think Southport ended up abandoning their work, and we sort of persevered, and we got it done. So
yeah,
a bit of a cost associated with that though, but it's done.
Yeah, thank you, Barry. Sorry, Barry.
Yes, is there still a plan for a folding table there?
Yep. So next stage is obviously we've got a toilet and the other bits on the landside stuff, and then filleting table and fish bin and things like that.
So as far as getting rid of the stuff, is there a contractor already organised?
We've been recommended a couple, Barry. Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Really going well, mate.
Housing innovation.
Yep. No, a great win for the team. We've handed over the first 4 units, and we're just about to put up the tender for the demolition for site 2, which is Miller Street. The housing team have done a great job in relocating the tenants from that units, and we've been through there doing all our pre-demolition checks. Yep, but great to hand over the first 4 units. Miller Street will take 6 units, and we're just going through the bulk and location pieces for that. Again, well delivered by ABL, who delivered the storage facility for us as well. So that's the second project for the PMO. They delivered incredibly well on budget and on time. So, yep.
Yeah, Tom.
Lee, if I read this correctly, I'm surprised actually, to be honest with you, but if I read this correctly, it's going to come in 25% below budget. Is that going to be sustainable for the next 6 houses?
Should get better.
It should get better just through experience and.
So the whole idea of the housing innovation project was for us to spend some time and a bit of money up front developing what we felt was the ideal pod, the square box that ticked a lot of boxes, pardon the pun, but then was easy built, easy to price, repeatable. So what we'll do with Miller Street is we'll provide 6 units that are very similar to Stirrat Street. So our units become somewhat uniform, and we get better at building them, we get better at pricing them, and we bring a bit of competitive tension. We also got a lot less design costs. So as long as we keep on developing these units on our own land, then the cost will get down to a certain point. It should get cheaper than what it is now, but it'll get down to a certain point where it's much more sustainable than reiterating a design, changing a design from site to site to site. It's kind of like a copy and paste. It might not be so palatable in the architectural awards sort of space, but in a sustainable house building approach, this is how you do it this is how we used to do it in the UK, for large developments with, hundreds or thousands of units. There was 3 or 4 types, and we just repeated the same types over and over again. So it's just taken a little bit of a UK approach, I suppose, to house building, and it's working for us.
Impressive places, actually.
Yeah. So with that, so how many units are we thinking we'll continue to build?
Look, obviously there's money in the long-term plan that allows us to do another 2 sites at least, maybe 3, depending on what the sites are and how many units will go onto that site. We've just focused on the first couple of sites at the moment. I know the property team are working hard to try and find a few more sites that they'd like to target next. And that's looking at the conditions of these buildings, how old they are, and just picking the worst and seeing if we can group the worst together and see then what we can do on that site. It's always going to be about increasing the numbers. So if we've got 4 in a unit on a 4 on a site, let's try and get 6, like we've done on Miller Street, site 2. Stirrat Street was a bit of a pilot project. It was a real small site, but we've seen if we could fit 4 on, and we managed to get 4 on. So we're trying to, we're just trying to bring that little bit of intensification without going too nuts with it. Again, just trying to find that economy of scale. So with the money that's set in the long-term plan, there's plenty of opportunity for us to keep going and delivering quite a few more units, to be fair. I wouldn't know the number off the top of my head, though, unfortunately.
It also probably enables us to be really informed around any conversation with central government, for them to come to the party, doesn't it? Because we know what our costs are. So.
Yeah, as a pilot project, it's gone well actually, and yeah, we've got some really good data out of it. And I think if we can repeat this success on Miller Street and maybe drop the price a little bit further, then it's you could talk with confidence.
That's good. Okay, CCTV.
Yep, CCTV sort of sitting still in amber, unfortunately. We got a great response to our tender, so our tender went out on time, and we got some strong responses from the market. All the suppliers supplied various options, which probably meant that we had a lot more to read than we were planning on reading, to be fair, and then Easter got in the way. What we came away with was 2 shortlisted suppliers and 1 clear preferred supplier. We've issued them a list of questions, and we're meeting with them later this week to sit down and go through that sort of first go of negotiation. With all the options that's been presented to us, obviously we had to come back within our project team and start asking ourselves some questions about which direction we want to go for X, Y, and Z. So we've been doing that. That's going to knock at the sort of costings around a little bit, OPEX and CAPEX, but we're just sort of we'll flush that out with the supplier in the next couple of weeks. The other part of it that's been a bit of a pain is that all the suppliers are sort of giving us an indicative timeline for materials to be here and then the install piece. So the materials to be here sort of 8 to 12 weeks, and then the install period something similar again, which obviously means we can't have what we set out, which was the whole thing sort of going live about middle of the year. But all the proposals sort of indicated that there will be cameras up, and we'd hopefully have some of the system live middle of the year, sort of July time, I think now possibly, and then it would be livened up over time. There's 23 locations in the first phase of the project, and unfortunately I can't sit here today and tell you exactly when all 23 will be live, but I would sit here and say that we should be able to liven that up bit by bit from probably July time, I think.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Questions? Breen?
Well, thanks, Chair. Look, I've got, there's actually 2 projects, Chair. I want to talk about. The first one is CCTV. Okay, so it's got 3 parts to the question. First part is budget. Now, it says here $1 million, but I've seen in the media, quoted by the Mayor, $2.2 million. And I've also got a copy of the GETS tender that went out, and it says indicative total value 1 million to 5 million. So can you just correct me on what the stage 1 is?
Yeah, so stage 1 budget is 1 million.
Okay.
Yep. The report that came to council in October showed vast increase to deliver the entire scheme, which was around about $2.something million, which I remember you guys giving me some robust chat around October around that. The GETS is just an indicative window because we've gone out for a possible service agreement for up to 10 years. So hence the difference in number in GETS. Just gives the supplier an indication of what the overall over 10 years might be, because it's a service agreement.
Okay, right. Second question relates to the comments in the blue column.
Yep.
Now it states here, ICC has a bit of work to do in flushing out our final needs as options have been presented. A number of issues with resources, data and networks have also been uncovered in the last 4 weeks. Now, the reason I raise this is that these are typical things that would pop up in a project like this. But looking at what's been spent to date, which is $111,561, I thought, and we haven't got any cameras for that, I thought that work would have looked at the things like networks, a critical one. I mean, it's like trying to design a bus service and realizing you haven't got any roads. And that's with the network. I mean, everyone knows that cameras sit on network. So I'm just wondering what the $111,000 and 561 went to, considering we've got all these unanswered questions now to delve through. I'm staggering. Can you please explain that?
Yeah, I can. Yep, sure. So most of it is project costs in regards to design, procurement, legal, and also investigation to the network, as you point out. So we've had contractors working since December, giving us information on power network and data network. So that's $111,000 is covering all the design work, all the gathering information, as you've mentioned, about the network.
Okay, so what are the remaining questions then that are raised in the blue column?
So over the last couple of weeks, or in the last 4 weeks, the contractors have been through the network, and they've raised a number of issues around some of the poles we assumed had 24-hour power. Some of them don't have 24-hour power, so we're going to have to figure that out. There's been some issues where they found damage on the network cable in the data stuff, and we're going to need to work through that. So they're fundamentally some of the challenges, and also some of the contractors have come back and suggested this work is a little bit more than they first envisaged, and they wouldn't have the resources to do that, and they've wanted more time to do that, which is a little bit of a disappointment, but that's the reality of limited contractors here in Invercargill with the experience.
So can I take it that the provision of the network is a separate contract to the people doing the CCTV?
Correct.
Right. And was it tendered that way?
Correct.
Right. So the prices still stack up with the $1 million budget?
The prices are much more in line with the paper I brought to you in October.
Well, sorry, I don't have that here.
Yeah. So yes. So stage 1, $1 million. The information we've had from network contractors, power contractors, and the tenders looks like it's on track. Yes.
Right. Okay. Oh, great. So the second project, it's not actually mentioned on here, but in 28th of November last year, Council approved the renaming and branding of the airport terminal.
Well, hang on, no, it's not on this piece here. So let's get through this, and then we'll take finals.
Okay, right. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'll just. Is there any other questions around the CCTV? So yeah, Barry, then Ren.
Yeah, as far as all the data and everything goes, have we had to alter any of our sites, or?
No, we're still working to the 23 sites that we set out in stage 1. We captured a few sites in South City, and we captured the site in Stirling Point. So at the moment, no, there's a couple that are. I think there's 7 of the 23 that have been identified by the contractors as pretty tricky ones.
Yeah.
I think we just need to get down the road a little bit further in whether we change position of cameras or whether we go for a different pole. But of the 23, yeah, I think 7 is what they've highlighted as really challenging ones.
Is there any other CCTV camera sorted out for down Duns Road, the one that got stolen?
Not too sure, sorry, Barry.
Yeah. Oh, I had out of Tara just to the
right where you
west
turn
side
off
of
the Sandy
west
Point.
side of the bridge, and before you turn down to go down towards
that site doesn't sound like it's in stage 1, to be fair.
Okay.
Yeah. Without the address, I'm not too sure.
Ria.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lee, I'm really sure we didn't give you too bad a roasting back in October about this. I would have remembered otherwise. But I just wanted to ask you, so with the strong tender response and moving through the stages, with the challenges that are presenting themselves as they have over the last 4 or so weeks, do you envision that we would have further cost factor potential blowout and a timeline to mid-year?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of challenges that there. One is sort of the contractors resourcing to actually liven the poles up. So that'll drive. I believe the CCTV suppliers will do what they say they'll do. They can get the kit within 8 to 12 weeks, and then they'll deliver the kit on the poles in 12 weeks. I think the contractor pool is where we're going to struggle a little bit in livening these poles up. So I think we might get in a situation where we have cameras on poles and we're waiting for our BAU contractors to come through and liven them up. So I think they're the more timeline risk. But we did sort of set a stretch goal of trying to have it live by mid-year, and unfortunately all the suppliers that tendered told us that probably wasn't going to be possible.
Okay.
So that's the time piece. The other question about cost piece, there's an OPEX and CAPEX piece, and I think we never knew what that was until we put a tender out in the market, and I think that's the point I made in October. We needed to get to market. We needed to get these solutions back to us so we understood it better. You know, we got a CCTV expert as a designer, but the market's the market. And there was lots of different ways to do this. We had 15 different options with the tenders that were submitted. So now we understand the options, and we've picked the recipe we want, which we think is a more resilient recipe. But there's a flip between physical build and cloud-based stuff. So there's capital cost versus OPEX cost, and we need to understand that, and we need to bring that possibly back to council, just so you're clear of what the ongoing OPEX cost would be down the road.
Sure. If I may, supplementary, with your commentary saying we've chosen a recipe out of those 15 potentials, if that recipe chosen, is there confidence that there are other towns or cities or other cities that are using part of that recipe?
Yeah, so when we talk about recipe, it's the type of camera. So we've picked a type of camera that is very common. It's actually probably the most common camera.
Okay.
Type of hosting, so we're wanting to go for a more cloud-based hosting solution rather than a fixed server. So rather than building cabinets and having ongoing, every 5 years having to change hardware out, we're looking at a cloud-based solution where we pay a service fee and somebody else looks after all the servers and all that sort of stuff. We need to understand the cost of that, and then storage of data and the likes of that. So while we talk about a recipe, it's just different options and just picking the right box and then understanding the cost of that.
Sure. So can I take another supplementary? So thank you for being patient, Lee.
It's all right.
I just want to pick up on something you said too, like looking at cost versus data held in cabinets or actual cloud. So my interest picked up when you mentioned the word data and server. But you're right, that cost can't be ring fenced at the moment, but it's significantly quite large.
So we've got to look at retention, how much data, what sort of data, again, this is kind of getting into the weeds a wee bit, but for the bulk of the cameras on stage 1 of the 23 locations, most of them are ANPR type cameras, and then there's actual cameras that you look through. So ANPR is very low data yield. When we go to different phases of the CCTV project, the camera type will change. There'll be more cameras that are looking at things, so that data yield will come up. So we just need to understand with this supplier, first of all, we need to be clear with them what our recipe is now, and then ask them to break those costs down so we understand what is a one-off OPEX cost versus a one-off CAPEX cost, and then what is a year-by-year look like for council if we carry on, if we pick that recipe and proceed down that path, versus a very traditional recipe, which is kind of what we got now, where we got servers upstairs, and we need more racks, more cooling, more redundancy, more resiliency. A lot of companies now are moving to the cloud. Cloud is getting cheaper. Storage of data is getting cheaper. So it's kind of moving with the times as well, as making sure that whatever recipe we choose, it's future-proofed. We don't want to be we don't want to be left with physical servers that we need to keep on updating and upgrading.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you.
That's all right.
Yeah, I think we've all got a pretty good feel that this is a pretty complex project, and the other piece of it is, I just asked Michael where we're at with the privacy, data, policy and those sorts of things. So it is a complex project, and then on the other side of that, our community, is going to benefit significantly from this in terms of them feeling safe, and that's a really important piece. So we'll just got to keep pushing on, and thanks, Lee, for the work that you're doing around it. So, is it in relation to something that's on the agenda?
CCTV.
Yeah.
Okay, look, when talking about virtual versus server hardware, now we have to watch our budget here because we've approved $1 million. Now there's 888,000 left. Now, if we go spending 888,000 on hardware, and then say, hey, we've got a virtual solution for the servers that could cost us an extra 200,000 a year ongoing, that's not conforming to the budget. That is not. That is taking the budget and dressing it up, in my view. I've done some inquiries over the last 2 weeks about what is used around New Zealand in this sort of application as far as virtual servers and having the real thing upstairs. The real thing doesn't occupy much space, about the size of a home stereo system, seriously. For example, Christchurch City Council use hardware for all their CCTV. So I'm wondering that I'm a bit worried that this budget is somehow going to come around and not be what we really approved at the start. So when do we say yes or no to this ongoing cost? That's a very real cost, because you look at 10 years of 250,000. There's 2.5 million suddenly clocked up. So this is, why wasn't this revealed and originally pre-tender with the consultant?
Well, I don't.
Oh, we've got
I
some
was going to
extra
say, I
people.
think there's probably some history
life.
here on this one that is pre it being handed over into the PMO.
Yeah.
There was some work done initially around that $1 million budget that, as I understand it, didn't have a OPEX piece around it. When we asked the project management office to pick up the CCTV project, and Lee spoke about bringing a report back in October which talked about the CapEx costs. It also put forward some indicative OPEX costs which flagged the fact that those had been missed and advised that we would come back and firm up those OPEX costs as we worked through the process. So I absolutely agree they weren't flagged originally, but they have been flagged since, and we did advise that we would come back and confirm those.
So will this committee be asked for a new budget before you are confirming any winner of the tender?
I think what our intention actually is to get a full lens and view of what 10 years might look like in this particular recipe and bring that back.
I think we would have to, wouldn't we?
So on that, Lee, that's a 10-year view of OPEX or OPEX and CapEx?
OPEX.
Correct.
OPEX.
Yep.
Yeah.
Net present cost, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I think what Councillor Rang is trying to say is that, the $1 million is probably not right, and we know that. I mean, I flagged that in October, and we had a pretty robust chat about that. And we're going to have another robust chat with the recipe worked out and laid out for everybody to understand what is the cost of CCTV for council for 5-10 years. So you understand that. So, I mean, this is the only way to do that. Yeah, and we're doing that.
So as long as we're got the recipe for brandy snaps and we're not using Remy Martin XO cognac to make them, that's all. As long as we are
not much of a brandy drinker, to be honest.
Yeah, well, as long as we are looking at the practical solutions for this, because there are 100 ways to skin this, and it's not looking. I'm just weary of all these options, and will we get to see them, or this obviously will be done by the PMO group?
The tender piece, no, we don't bring tender bids back to council for obvious reasons. But like I say,
but that's done within the context of the budget, right?
Yes,
so
correct.
You know the budget.
We know the budget. We know what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and you fit that
And look, I think we can add into this isn't a choice being made just in isolation by the PMO, and I think that's why Trudy's come to sit at my left. There's a broader piece of work that Trudy's team is doing from an ICT perspective around whether we should be server-based, whether we should be cloud-based, which she's working with Lee on to make sure that we don't go down one path with the project, which is different to what our overall ICT strategy is.
And it's also being very aware of the cyber security elements to any way that we manage any information that we touch. So I would hate to mislead the committee by saying it's one way or the other. We have to look at all the options and make sure we make the best option based on it meets our cybersecurity framework, as well as our focus towards where it is applicable, we try and move to the cloud because that's more sustainable from an on-prem solution. But we take it very seriously, and it goes through a lot of rigour to get to the right point, and the suppliers have been very helpful from the information they have provided us.
Through you, Chair, what's been assumed in the long-term plan as far as what has been assumed in the long-term plan as far as OPEX is concerned? I mean, have we assumed $200,000 a year for the cloud, for example, or have we not assumed anything?
We have, yeah.
We have assumed some, but potentially not all. And it has implications for if we want to look even longer term at our whole network, remembering this stage is just one stage and is separate to all of the other cameras that we operate today. So we need to look at long term, what is our plan with as other technology comes up for renewal or through the process in different areas, that how do we either put that into the new way or whether we just replace like for like. But we need to go through the proper process to do that.
Probably to answer Tom's question, yes, a placeholder, OPEX placeholder has been information has been given to finance.
Yeah.
Enough.
Enough as we see it at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's fair enough.
Yeah. So just in terms of, you'll be coming back to us probably in May with as close as possible cost estimates of.
We would have an absolute almost to the dollar.
Yeah.
We would understand what 10 years look like.
Yeah, and this phasing of first stage, second phase.
Correct.
Yeah. And then the second, you're not doing this in isolation, or you're talking to other councils that have been through this. I think Dunedin's just been.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing with our designers, safer cities, they do this a lot up and down the country. Aside from that, I mean, Councillor Potton just talked about Christchurch. When we talk about a recipe a little bit earlier, we're talking about using a very similar VMS as Christchurch is using. We're using similar cameras as Christchurch is using. We're taking a slightly different hosting solution possibly to Christchurch as an option, bit more feature focused. And I think talking to CTOC and a few others in Christchurch, if they had an opportunity now, if they knew what they knew now, how the data centers and that were going to go, they might have made some different choices. They're now facing some pretty stiff numbers in their server upgrade program, which is a hard cost that we might not have if we take an online solution to this. So, like everybody said, there's a lot of different ways to do this. We've understood that. We've been presented at least 15 different options from suppliers, and we're exploring two. We've got a preference for one, and we're just going to flesh that out, and we'll bring that information back to you.
Yeah, thank you. No, good discussion. Right. Thanks, Eddie. I think that's it. So have we got a move in a second? Can I get a move? Thanks, Leslie. And
excuse me, Chair. That project I mentioned, are we able to discuss
It's not
that?
on the agenda, so I'll just leave it for General Council.
Okay, this is the projects committee, isn't it?
But it's not a project that's on any agenda.
Does it have to be listed on the agenda?
Yes.
Well, yeah. I'm not going to accept it through here because it's not on the agenda.
Oh, okay, no, it was just a project. That's all. This is the project committee.
So,
No?
second, Barry? Yep. Okay. Any final questions? All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the public portion of our meeting. So we are moving into public excluded for the reasons of primarily around commercial sensitivity of information. So can I have someone move? Thanks, Barry, and second, was that a second? Thanks, Rhea, to move into public excluded. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.